I am Pastor Joe Parks, and I am super pumped to be here, guys, today. We are going to begin talking about, this is a brand new series, Heartbeat. We're talking about developing a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ. And we're talking about how to have a good summer, too, but we're going to look at that through the book of Luke, a passage. But before we read that, it's summer. Do you guys know that it's summertime? Yeah. I mean, doesn't that say it all? It's kind of what it's been like, right? It's hot outside. Hey, but other than it's hot, summertime, it just seems like it kind of messes with our schedule. It messes with our routine a little bit. You notice that? Like even the community just feels different, right? Just kind of the ways things are happening and what's going on. And I think that if you are blessed to be able to go off on a vacation somewhere, hopefully to cooler weather, we had a whole bunch of ladies from all the different campuses go to Los Angeles for the last couple of days for the She Rises conference. Yes, and they're here. And there was more than that, though, that went. And you know what? I saw them bragging. They're like, the high is 72. I'm like, okay, yeah. Summertime just kind of does that. But one of the things I notice when I go on vacation, maybe this doesn't happen to you, but it happens to me, is when I go off, it seems like I come back more tired than when I left in the first place. And I didn't think that was the idea, right? Like I thought I was supposed to rejuvenate or something, but so often that seems like it's the case. A couple of years ago, it was our youngest daughter's 16th birthday. And so we decided to incorporate our summer vacation family thing with her birthday. So we did 2 days in Universal Studios and 2 days in Disney World in hot and humid Orlando, Florida. Now her birthday is on June the hot 10th. So it is rough, folks. It was rough. So right out of the gate on day one, I am just like, we wake up at 5:30 in the morning or whatever time it was, and we go to the airport. We board the plane. We fly to Orlando. We land at 11 in the morning. We go directly from there to get the rental van that we were using at the airport. We drive directly to Universal Studios, and we're playing all day and all night long till they close at midnight. This body hadn't seen that much activity in the last 10 years. We did in one day. And so at midnight, my body is so tight, my muscles are so tight, I'm like literally freezing up, you know? And I'm just like shuffling my way back to the van just to get into it. We get into the hotel room, and I drink like half a bottle of ibuprofen and just like rub Tiger Balm all over because I was dying. The next morning, I wake up, and I'm still in a lot of pain. And my family's like, don't worry about it. You can just stay home today. You don't have to. And I'm like, no. I'm going to will my way through this today. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to will my way through this today. But I just got up, and I did it. So what happened was I was just stretching, like all day long. I was just stretching. I was, I would have to pick up my leg and throw it up on the railing, like where you're waiting in line. And I'm like stretching. I'm like doing old man grunts. I'm like stretching on that. And I was just doing that all day. But then I'm praying too. I'm like, Lord Jesus, help me. Please get me through this day. I got 3 more days. How am I going to do this? But as I'm going through the day, here's what I noticed. As it kept going and we get into the evening, I'm feeling better and better. And by the evening, I was pretty good. And the next couple of days, I was pretty good. It was fine. And a lesson that I learned from that trip was God wants to refresh us. He really does. When we ask him, he really wants to. And I think that the summer season can absolutely be ideal for all of us to do something like that. And this passage that we're going to go through today in Luke, what we're going to show you is that Jesus wants to get into the center of your home. Even if there's all kinds of crazy chaos and stuff happening within it, he wants to get into it and refresh and rejuvenate you and your life. And it can happen if we hold on to these principles in Luke chapter 10. So we have it in your outline. I'm going to read it to you. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. She had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. Hold on, let's stop here right now. Any of you guys ever get distracted?
Squirrel!
Right. Exactly. So she's distracted by all the preparations that have to happen. She says, she came to him, Jesus, and asked, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? She's throwing her sister under the bus. And then she says, tell her to help me. Now she's bossing Jesus around. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken from her. We're going to talk about how to have a good summer, grow this deeper relationship with God. We're going to talk about these two sisters, because I love it when there's a spat, when there's an argument in the Bible. Right? I love it because we're not the only ones, right? I love it when a quarrel will make the cut in the Bible. How many, here's the thing. Sometimes I think some of us wake up on Sunday morning, and as we're getting ready for church, we start some bickering in the house and some arguing going on, and some of that's happening. We're like going to church, but we're fighting in the house. And then we get in the car, and then we're driving on the way here, and we're like still fighting in the car and bickering. We're coming to church, but we're fighting, preparing our hearts. And so, and then we get here, and we're in the parking lot, and we're still arguing. We're like out in the parking lot, still bickering. And it's the amazing thing about technology today is we've got video all over the place. And so we have some video of you guys. I kid. Just joking. You guys got scared though. Oh, I hope it's not us, honey. Yeah, I saw. I saw that. Oh my goodness gracious. But this one in Luke was recorded. And it's so powerful because we've got a holy God and we see the miracles and the perfection in who he is. But here we also see the flaws in human life. And it is amazing that we see this because it's usually not what you and I get to see, right? Like we look at people's Instagram posts and it's all plastic, right? Like everything is all good. You ever notice when you're having like a terrible day, you're just having a bad day for whatever reason it is. And you start flipping through and looking at people's Facebook posts and Instagram posts, and you're flipping through it, and you see your friends are at the beach, all skinny, right? Smiling. Hashtag wish you were here. Whatever. Right? I mean, that's usually what we're getting. But the Bible doesn't just show us the good. It shows us the bad and the ugly. And that's what this story is all about. And it's bringing truth to life for you and I. And it is amazing. So Martha and Mary, they have the King of Kings in their home. And I'm thinking like you and I, if we had a king in our home, we would probably act a little different, right? Right? Like most people's arguments are going to be behind closed doors, not just out in front of everything. But there's not only a king in the house, there is the King of Kings in their house. And yet there's still this frustration and this tension that is happening. It had to be incredibly awkward for all the people that were there. So let's go back and look at verse 38 together. It says, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Here's the first principle. I want you guys to write this down. Jesus desires to be in my home. Jesus desires. I think you'd want him in your home, right? Raise your hand if you want Jesus in your home right now, right? We want him in our home. And so Martha just says, come on in. So the question then for you and I is, well, how do we do it then? How do we get Jesus in our home? Because let's just say like you don't feel like he's there right now. So how do we get him there then? How do we get him into our home? And I think that it's so simple sometimes that we just miss it. Because when we read this passage, we see what happens. They just invited him in. She just invited him in. As a matter of fact, Jesus says that's the only thing that we have to do. Look at what he says in Revelation 3:20. He says, "Here I am. I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in." Right? Look, it's a promise. I will come in. Right? They open the door, I'm coming in. And I'm not just going to hang out. We're going to eat together. We're going to dine. It's going to be incredible. Jesus says, I'm just waiting for the invitation. I'm just waiting for you. You guys, you want to have a good summer? Let's kick this thing off with inviting him into our home. Here's the second. Let's look at verse 39. She had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet listening to what he said. Second principle, write this down. Jesus desires to be in my heart. Not just in my home, but in my heart. My wife and I have been in ministry together for over 25 years. We have been licensed, ordained, Foursquare pastors for years and years. And a funny thing is that whenever we're hanging out with like her family and going, different things, events that are happening, they often look to me to take care of things, right? Like they look to me to do the Thanksgiving meal prayer or Christmas or whatever the case is. If they're seeking some advice or counsel, they often come to me. And I am always, which I'm very grateful, right, that I have a relationship like that allows those things. But I'm thinking, here's Kathleen. You could talk to her too. She can do it too. And I'm thinking, like, she is so wise. That woman likes to dish out some advice, right? And it's probably way better than what you're going to get from me. But it's just that familiarity thing. That's just what's happening in that situation within the family, right? It becomes incredibly easy. It was so familiar to just look past something. It's that familiarity. And I think that's what happens. We see people, they call on the name of Jesus, but they don't really know who he is, right? Like there's this tendency for many people in their lives to kind of get into this flow where they live like the people in Jesus' hometown of Nazareth. And it was so easy for them in this place. They knew him as a carpenter, but they didn't know him as Lord. And that was the difference. So his name was familiar, Jesus. They already knew, like, where's Jesus? Oh, Jesus is down, like 3 doors down on the left. He and his pops are carpenters. They can do some good work. That's what he does. And it was just this familiarity with him. And that's what they were. And the fact that was the case, that's how they knew him as just a name. There was never anything powerful that happened in their homes, the Bible tells us. Because he was not Messiah to him. He was just a name. It was just familiar name. So for us, there can be this tendency to know his name, but not really know who he is. And it's because we're not worshipers. And how do we make this relationship grow? It's worship. Like if I were to ask the question to people, what is worship? I would get this answer. This answer would be number one by far. What is worship? People would be like, oh, okay, I know what worship is. Worship is the first 20 minutes of a church service, and that's when we come in together, and we stand and we sing together, and the band is up there killing it, and we got the lyrics up here, and that's worship. Well, yeah, that is a part of worship. It's a part of worship in the believer's life, that's for sure, right? We come together to celebrate the risen King as the Bible instructs for us. But that's just a part of what worship is. To worship the King, man, that involves everything of everyday life it involves all that we do. It's your sleeping and eating and going to work and walking around in life that we offer that up to God. That's exactly what the Bible tells us in Romans chapter 12. That's what worship is. See, Jesus desires to be in our hearts. That means that you and I include him in everything that we do. We mix Jesus into everything that we do. And Jesus desires to be in our hearts, and he desires to be in our homes. So we're going to invite him in, and we're going to worship 24/7. And Pastor Jim Ranger is going to continue the rest of the points here. Please welcome Pastor Jim.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love Joe and Kathleen. She was my Sunday school teacher. They've been a part of our lives for a long time, and they took over our student life ministry here at the Southwest Campus a couple seasons ago. And it really has. It's reinvigorated that whole ministry, and you just see what's coming out of it. It's really beautiful. So, yeah, I'm so excited. Thank you guys for all you do. Love you guys. So, next point. Jesus desires to be in your distractions. Jesus desires to be in your distractions. Luke 10:40 says, Martha was distracted. Say distracted. Cool, I'm making sure you guys are not distracted. Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. So, if you guys have been around here long enough, you know I have an issue with distractions. I chase rabbits, in my thoughts, and I'm all over the place sometimes, and shiny things distract me. And, growing up, I didn't know quite what to do with it, so I would get in trouble, and not because I was, acting out or a bad kid, but I'd get in trouble for being distracted, not paying attention. They'd call my parents up and hey, listen, everything's all right with Jim, but he draws over everything, and he doesn't seem like he's listening. So then as I kind of grew up, I became a pastor. And as a pastor, one of your primary objectives is to listen to people, right? Have conversations and listen to people. That's what you're there for. Problem is that's hard for me to do because I'm talking to you and then something happens. And I felt so horrible when I started to catch on, but I would be in the middle of a conversation and then I'd start thinking about something. And I literally would just walk away in the middle of a conversation, and they're like, Jim. I was like, what? Oh, my bad. So, in order to help that, here's what I'm going to do, right? I'm going to make eye contact like you can't even believe. I'm going to make it awkward. I'm going to stare right through you. And so the whole time I'm just make eye contact, make eye contact, make eye contact, make eye contact. Now I've forgotten everything they're saying. And now I don't know what to do, so I just keep staring, right? So finally, here's what helped. First of all, embracing the fact that I'm going to get distracted, right? The second part of that is I allowed Jesus to be in this moment to where in my head I'm not saying make eye contact. I am just appreciating this child of God in front of me. And there's something that happens in that moment of really allowing Jesus to be in the middle of this conversation that allows me to focus in on what's going on. And over the years, it's become this fascination with humans, right? I'm fascinated with you because you are a child of God. You're a creation. You're a unique person. You have all your own weird things. And there's something about that draws me in now because I've allowed Jesus to be moving in my heart and to begin to open my eyes to see creation through his eyes, not my own, right? So now I'm not looking for something more fascinating. You're right in front of me. And there's something about that. When we put Jesus right in the middle of our distractions, man, we see things in a whole different way. This is what's going on with Martha. Martha is being so distracted by the preparations. She's being distracted because Jesus was in her home, but not in her heart, right? Like she is so consumed with this idea that she is having to do this stuff. I'm having to do this stuff, and I'm having to do it by myself, and Mary's just sitting there doing nothing, right? I love this. Luke 10:41. Martha, Martha. Okay, stop there. If God says your name twice, it's the equivalent of my mom saying, James Albert Ranger the fourth. Right? So if you're just like, you hear it, Jim. This is what's going on here. Martha, Martha, listen, sweetie, listen. You are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. See, she's so distracted, and it's for good reasons. She's preparing for the Lord, right? There's this beautiful song by this guy named Gregory Porter. He's a renowned jazz soul singer, but he's out of Bakersfield. And he has this song that the first time I heard it just moved me beyond anything I can imagine. And it's called Take Me to the Alley. And what he's talking about, he says there's all these people, and they're in preparation for the Lord. They shine up these things. They're getting the house ready, right? They're doing this preparation for the Lord, and they're going to make it look so cool and awesome. And he says, but they're going to be so surprised when he says, take me to the alley. Take me to the afflicted ones. Take me to the ones that they feel lost and they're broken and hurting. And see, we can do a lot. But unless we understand what it means to be, not to do, but to be, to know that you are a child of God, to know that you have your quirks and your weirdness and all the things, the good, the bad, the ugly, that you are accepted, and Jesus died for you while you were still in sin, is what it says. Like, even though he knew what type of person you are, even he knows beyond the filters that you put up, beyond the things that try to hide who you actually are. Jesus knew, he knows, he's in it, he loves everything about you. You are his creation, and yes, we have fallen into pride and ego and sin, but yet he only sees the creation that you are, the wonder that you are, the love that you are, and the love that he has for you. When you get stuck in the distractions, it takes you away from the idea that you don't have to do in order to be accepted. You just have to be. Just trust that you are enough. Trust that Jesus paid it all, revealed it all, did it all. Everything you need, he's done. When distractions can be one of those things too that I would ask you to raise your hand who text and drive, but then, be incriminating yourself. But I have a huge pet peeve, and there's nothing that makes me lose my religion faster than somebody in front of me texting and driving. Now here's the deal. Here's the hypocrisy. I do it sometimes, okay? I do. I get mad at myself when I catch myself. But you know what I mean? Like when somebody's driving, right, and you're behind them. Here, watch the screen, right? Here's what you see. Here's when you know. They're driving like this. They're going like this. Right? The whole time they're driving, you know what they're doing. They're looking at their phone the whole time, and it's driving me nuts. And here's what it kind of happens. It's the same kind of imagery here. Is what happens is your phone is awesome. And sure, whatever somebody's telling you is probably pretty important. But whatever it is cannot be more important than what's ahead of you. Why? Because there's cars and buildings and people ahead of you, right? I'm blowing your mind here, but listen, there's nothing on that phone more important than what's ahead of you. It's the same thing here. As God is saying, listen, you're getting distracted, and there is nothing more important than what I have in front of you. There's nothing more important. Galatians 5:7. You were running a good race. Who cut in on you to keep you from obeying the truth? You were doing great. You were growing. You were learning how to love. Who cut in on you and distracted you? And then Jesus gets pretty plain right here too in Luke 9:62. It says, Jesus replied, no one who puts his hand to the plow and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. See, it's all distractions. When you don't walk in trust, right? Because here's Martha again. She loves Jesus, obviously, right? She's excited. But there's not this sense of trust that he's in your home. Now he's in your heart. The only thing for you to do is just be and let that grow, and let that develop, let that to become something. But when you're looking back the whole time, you're looking side to side, You're not soaking in the moment that is. You're not soaking in this relationship that he's longing for you to have. And that brings us to the last one, is Jesus wants a deeper relationship with you. Jesus wants a deeper relationship with you. Here we go. Let's read that same passage again from 10:41-42. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried and upset about many things, but few things are needed. Read this right here with me. Ready? Go. Or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken. There's something about that screams eternity, right? Like it's not going to be taken from her. There's all these things that you're worried about. Yeah, and I'm sure they're fine. They're important. But here's what I'm longing for. Jesus is longing to have a relationship with you. A deep, meaningful relationship. I love the scripture. If you guys are around, I say it a lot because it's my favorite psalm, Psalm 63, where it says, it's David, and he's writing this, and he's in the desert, and he's running for his life, and he's scared, and I'm sure he's dehydrated, and all this stuff, because what he writes is this, my God, earnestly I seek you, in a dry and weary land where there is no water, my lips thirst for you. See, what he's saying is, yeah, my body craves. My body needs nourishment, but this body has a shelf life. When you understand eternity, you understand that there's nothing more that you need than the presence of God. There's nothing more that you need. And again, we need nourishment. But even in this idea is that Jesus wants to have a deeper relationship, the kind that you don't feel like you have to do anything in order to receive it, other than submit. There's this idea that Jesus is this eternity thing. It keeps our perspective up. When we keep things in this realm of eternity, it keeps our mind up, it keeps our spirits up, it keeps our perspective up because we see things from a bigger thing. So we understand that there's going to be seasons, there's going to be valleys, there's going to be mountains, there's going to be this whole thing. We have perspective as we go through life, and that's kind of like surfing right there. But as we go through this stuff, we have this ability to trust in a deep way because we know that Jesus Christ revealed it all, paid it all, did it all. There's that constant reminder because we have eternity. It cannot be taken away. It will not be taken away. That is a promise that some of you need to just be reminded of. That your salvation, your hope, your eternal hope cannot be taken away. Jesus wants that kind of relationship with you. He wants that kind of relationship where there's a difference between the covenant relationship and the consumer relationship, right? The covenant relationship, oh man, that's the one that says, I adjust to your needs. And the hope is that you adjust to mine. And in this, we constantly adjust to each other's needs. And because there's this indefinite thing, right? We can't get out of it. This is a relationship that we cannot get out. So we are going to do what we need to do. We're going to adjust to each other the way it needs to. That's a covenant relationship. A consumer relationship says, you adjust to my needs or I find another place to get my needs met. Right? Now, if we're real honest with ourselves, most of our relationships are that way, at least to some degree. We long for them to be covenant relationships. But here's what Jesus is saying. There is no end to my love. That Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. There is zero end. So if you embrace that eternity factor, if you embrace the idea that Jesus wants to have this covenant relationship with you, it means you will have a peace that surpasses all understanding. Why? Because there's no end. There's no earning. You can't earn forever. There just is forever. And you can choose to be a part of it, or you can choose not to, but the choice is yours to be in it or not to be. But Jesus is calling you, and he's saying, listen, I want this type of relationship. This type where there is no filters between us, where you don't feel like you have to hide something. My buddy Josh Donahue, since little tots, man, we were thick as thieves. We've been through all the seasons of ups and downs, and we know all the deepest, darkest things about each other. You know what I'm talking about, right? You got one of those. Most of the time, we get like maybe one or two of these relationships in a lifetime, right? But the thing that really brings it to life is we can not only be aware of each other's insecurities, but we can make fun of them, right? Like, we're going to bust each other's chops a lot because I know I'm going to keep you humble, you're going to keep me humble. Like, this is that type of relationship, right? It has no filters. And even the ones that we would normally have, it's almost like I embrace you because you have flaws. Like we're closer because of our flaws, because we know each other. This is what Jesus longs for you. Here's the bad news. He has no flaws. Jesus has none, but we all do. And Jesus is telling you, yeah, I know. Remember I had to come and die and do that whole thing? I know your flaws. He wants to have a relationship that is so much deeper than you looking the part. It's so much deeper. It's so much richer. It has this substance that is not about anything that this world can offer. There's limitations that get on a relationship, no matter how hard you try, no matter how close you are. Spouse, brother, sister, mother, father. There's always going to be some sort of filter attached. Jesus Christ came and showed us that there is no filter between us and him other than what we put up. Because he's eliminated all of those. He exposed it all. The dark, the dirty, the broken. He exposed it all and showed just how big and how wide the love of God is. That there is no distance, no depth, nowhere that he's not willing to go to bring you back into this place of hope, of understanding. So long we fall away from it. And I love these words that Jesus writes, or Jesus says in Revelations 2. It says, I know your deeds, your hard work, your perseverance. You have persevered and have endured hardships for my name and have not grown weary. Ready? Yet I hold this against you. You have forsaken the love you had at first. Consider how far you have fallen. Go back and do the things you did at first. The relationship with Jesus has nothing to do with you earning it. Right there. That's great. Oh man, you did all these things. That's awesome. That's beautiful. But man, you're missing out on the unbelievable truth that we say we follow, this Christian faith. This is not the rules and the regulations. This is not behavior modification. This is a changing from the inside out. You don't think your way into a new way of living. You live your way into a new way of thinking. It's a submission. It's saying, you know what? I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to have all the theology. I don't have to have the perfect whatever. All I have to have is a step of faith. Right? It's always that little step of faith. It's always you opening the door. He's going to just knock. He's just gently just knocking. Say, I'm ready when you are. I've already done it all. I'm here waiting. You have to take that step of faith, though, and say, Jesus, I want you in my heart. I want you in my home. I want you in my distractions. I want you in every aspect of me, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The Bible talks about that we are broken so that his light can shine through us. So you can't boast in yourself because it has nothing to do with how great you are. But it has everything to do with the fact that there is no limit to God's love and his grace for us. It's beautiful, ain't it? Let's pray. Father, you are so good. And because we are your children, we are no longer a slave to fear and anxieties. That Jesus, you crave and you long to be in our home, in our heart, with our family, while we're at work. You want to be a part of every moment of our life. Not to bring more rules and regulations, but to bring a fullness. God, some of us here, we've become jaded. We've become jaded to you, Jesus. We've lost we're just so familiar with you now. God, reinstill in us this true sense of Jesus, you did it all, you paid it all, you revealed it all. Everything we need is in you. Remind us of that covenant between us. That you're always going to be there for us. Some of us have just gotten away from that first love, that first thing. God, let our distractions not be taking away from who you are. Let us not just stick you at the top of our priority list, but let's put you in the middle of every single priority.